All right. What is going on? I Coach Nutrition family, back at it with another podcast episode here. So today we're going to be diving into the topic of how to determine how much protein you need on a daily basis. Now, this question gets brought up all of the time with so many clients that I work with, as well as just so many people that, are in this Facebook group, I Coach Nutrition family, and asking questions on social media and so on and so forth there. And so rightfully so, right? There's a lot of confusion out there in terms of what that protein recommendation should be. And there's a lot of different ideas, a lot of different philosophies, a lot of different experts that are sharing, their differing opinions there. And so, when you look at the RDA, which is the recommended daily allowance of protein intake, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, right? This is where a lot of people that are registered dietitians and doctors, even for me, as we're going through school and I'm getting my nutrition degree, this is really what's being put at us, right? Is this is the RDA for protein. And so the biggest mistake that people will make, coaches and nutritionists, RDs, doctors, all of us that are in this industry coaching, is that we will look at the RDA, right? We'll look at the recommended daily allowance there and say, oh, well, that's the recommended amount of protein intake that somebody should take in. But here's the reality, is that the RDA is just to make sure that you're not becoming protein deficient, right? And so this is not taking into account and somebody that is active or living an active, healthy lifestyle. This is not taken into account, especially those individuals that are playing sports, or those individuals that are, doing resistance training and doing strength training. And it's definitely not taken into consideration individuals that are doing sports like powerlifting or Olympic lifting or CrossFit or, bodybuilding or anything like that. And so we've got to keep in mind that the RDA, right, that's going to be the absolute bare minimum. That's essentially going to be putting you into, what we would say is like the reference range for an individual, but it's not something that we should be shooting for in terms of optimal, right? Optimal health, optimal aesthetics, optimal performance. Okay. And so there's a really big difference there. And what I want to do is I want to share a piece here this is in the I Coach Nutrition method, the all-inclusive guide to mastering your diet. What I want to do here is I want to share this piece. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And this is going to be, kind of what I'm going to reference as we're going through this, because this is something that, again, if you haven't read this part, this is something that's really important for you to really understand. So if we come into the section here, go ahead and bring this up. Let's see. For those of you listening on the podcast, I haven't forgot about you, but we're obviously, you're like, man, what's going on? Okay, we're back. Okay, so here we go. So again, I'm just going to kind of read through this piece and kind of go over some of these places, go over some of these segments. Okay, so protein. One question I get asked so frequently is how much protein should you eat per day, right? And so look, like most things in nutrition, it depends. The recommended daily allowance, like I said, the RDA is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, we're in the, most of us here, at least that are in this Facebook group, maybe not everybody that's listening to the podcast or on YouTube, but this kilo, right? This kilogram really throws a lot of people off, because we're used to, grams, right? We're not used to using kilograms as a measurement. Okay. So again, the recommended daily allowance, the RDA, okay, is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, again, this is what I was hinting at. RDAs were developed to prevent malnutrition. Okay. In other words, in order to not get sick or die. Okay. So if you're an active individual, then you will need to focus on thriving, right, rather than just surviving. Okay. So most people should prioritize eating at least 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight. That's what's going to put you more into that optimal range. Okay, this is what it's going to put us into the range of trying to accomplish health goals, aesthetic goals, performance goals, not just trying to not get sick and not just trying not to die, right? So, you know, it's important to note here that if you're someone that has a lot of weight to lose, then you will want to base this multiplier off your goal body weight, not your current weight, right? So if you work out consistently, if you're someone that's doing resistance training 3 to 5 times per week or more, if you're playing sports, so on and so forth, now we'd start to look into the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Okay. So the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, as well as the American College of Sports Medicine, they recommend 1.2 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Again, this confuses a lot of people with the whole kilogram instance here. Okay. But the challenge is that there's a wide range recommendation, right? And it's trying to encompass all these different lifestyle factors, right? And so to narrow this down, you should consider a number of factors such as your total calorie intake, your type of exercise, your carbohydrate intake, how active you are, your age, your biological sex, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different factors there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example of me. Okay. I'm a 185-pound male. I'm 30 years old. I do 3 to 5 functional bodybuilding workouts per week, and I'm averaging about 3,000 calories per day with the goal of maintaining my weight. Okay. So going back to that general recommendation there, right, of taking your body weight and multiplying by 0.7, which again, this is just trying to translate it from, you know, overcomplicating things or confusing people with kilograms to just doing it with grams, right? Something that we're more used to here in America. So if I took that bottom end range of 185 and I multiplied that by 0.7, that's going to be the lower end. Okay. That's going to be like the absolute bare minimum that I'm trying to hit here. Okay. So 185 times 0.7, that puts me at about 130 grams of protein per day. Now, going back to that range, 0.7 to 1.0, I want to, you know, I'm somebody that's very, very active. I want to be closer to that body weight or goal body weight there times 1.0. Okay. So I'm shooting for about 185 grams of protein per day on average. Okay. And again, this is one of these things where, you know, you've got to remind yourself that you're not going to be able to, you know, essentially jump up to this number overnight, right? Step one, right? How we go into this is we've got to make sure that regardless of the calculations and them suggesting a certain range, we've got to make sure that the amount of protein is actually feasible, right? You got to meet yourself where you are in this journey of trying to eat an adequate amount of protein intake. Okay. So for example, if you logged your food in MyFitnessPal or Chronometer for 7 days during your initial assessment of this protein intake, right? And you're surprised to find out that you're averaging half the amount of protein intake that the calculations suggest, then I highly doubt you're going to stuff your face with protein just to hit some number, right? Doubling your protein intake over a day's time or a week's time is going to leave you feeling bloated, stopped up, sluggish, and with a feeling of unrealistic expectations. So instead, we recommend slowly increasing your protein intake as your hunger response starts to increase. And this takes time, right? This can take weeks, it can take months, it can even take years. Okay. So there's several ways that you can slowly start to increase your protein intake. You can simply increase the protein portion size of one or more of your meals. You can add in protein-dense snacks. You can add in post-workout protein shakes. You can change up your meal frequency. But we just want to make sure that you're assessing your hunger response and your fullness after meals, assessing your digestion, assessing your bowel movements, bloating, and also just even your weighing and logging skills, right? Making sure that you're actually weighing your protein sources, weighing your meats and seafoods, and you know, any protein sources at that, and making sure that you're actually logging this food in correctly. Okay. And also just a reminder there, you know, anybody that is more plant-based or vegetarian or vegan, you know, remind yourself that you don't have to sit here and only eat, you know, animal-based products or protein bars and protein shakes in order to, you know, eat an adequate amount of protein. There's a lot of amazing high-quality protein sources. And so variety is definitely key there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to bring you back. But the big takeaway here is that regardless of what these recommendations are, right? Regardless of what these calculations are, you've got to make sure that you do an initial assessment of where your current protein intake is at. And if you fail to do that, you will set yourself up for failure. You're going to set yourself up for self-sabotage, because what's going to happen is you're going to see a number, you're going to try to hit that number, you're not going to be able to do it. Or if you do it, you're going to feel like crap. And then you're going to be like, there's no way that I can do this going forward. You're going to give up, you're going to quit. And then all of a sudden, now you're not working in the direction that you need to work, right? So again, regardless of whether you're going off of, an RDA, right? Or you're going off of more of the, sports nutrition dietetics, or the American College of Sports Medicine there, regardless of what recommendation you're going off of, right? Whether you're looking into kilos or doing it in grams, just think to yourself, the easiest way to go about this is to do an initial assessment for 7 days, log your food in MyFitnessPal, see what the amount of protein is that you're averaging per day, and meet yourself where you are. Set a goal to try to increase your protein intake up maybe 10 grams every week, right? And over the next few weeks, the next few months, now all of a sudden, slowly but surely, you're starting to eat closer to what that goal should be in terms of eating an adequate amount of protein intake. And I promise you that when it comes to a lot of these factors, like, wanting to lose weight, wanting to be able to build muscle, wanting to perform better, recover better, wanting to, improve your health and longevity, protein intake is so incredibly important. And it truly does make a huge difference in your adherence to be able to, eat healthy, and especially if you're trying to lose weight and lose body fat, being able to actually consistently eat in a calorie deficit. Protein is the most satiating of the 3 macronutrients, with protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And so I see this all the time. Individuals that are not eating an adequate amount of protein intake, they end up overeating carbohydrates and fats, leading them into a calorie surplus, right? And making them to gain weight. So if you're over here and you're complaining about having cravings and, sugar addiction and all of these different things, well, it's actually probably because you're not eating an adequate amount of protein intake. So take some time, log your food for a week, assess where your current protein intake is at. And if you're not, again, if you're going off your body weight or your goal body weight, and you're not in that range of body weight or goal body weight times 0.7 to 1.0, then you should really, really, really consider trying to start slowly, working in that direction. You're going to need to track your protein intake in order to do that. But it's extremely important, and it's probably the most important macronutrient for you to be able to pay attention to out of the 3, with protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Most of the time, if you're eating an adequate amount of protein intake, your carbs and fats fall into place there. And so again, this is the most important out of the 3, especially when it comes to maintaining muscle and building muscle. But also just in terms of being able to stay adherent, stay consistent with your nutrition, and being able to stay satiated in between meals, not feeling like you're starving all the time, or not feeling like you're craving all of this bad food, junk food, sugars, so on and so forth there. So again, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see with people, regardless of whether they're trying to improve their health, improve their aesthetics, or improve their performance, is they're under eating protein. So take this into consideration there. Don't get caught up in, kilos and these RDAs and, all of these different metrics out there. Don't get discouraged if you feel like you're so far away from what your goal should be, but just meet yourself where you are, slowly start working in the right direction. And I promise you that this will be one of the best nutritional habits that you will ever focus on. Is number 1, making sure that you're getting in a protein source at every single meal that you eat. All right. So if you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, don't blink on protein. Make sure you're getting in at least some type of protein into every meal. From there, take it to the next step. For women, and generally speaking, you should be shooting for about a palm-sized portion of protein, okay, which would be about 3 to 4 ounces of protein per meal. Okay, 3 to 4 ounces equates to about 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. For men, generally speaking, 2 palm-sized portions of protein at every meal. So that would be about 40 to 60 grams of protein, or the equivalent would be about 6 to 8 ounces of protein, right? And if you're doing that at every single major meal, you will definitely be getting pretty close to that protein intake range that you should be getting to. Again, if you're a female here and you eat 4 ounces of protein at a meal and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much, I'm stuffed, I'm so full, I can't eat this much. Well, you probably haven't been eating that much protein, right? And so you need to meet yourself where you are. Maybe you need to start at 2 ounces and then go to 2.5, and then go to 3, and then go to 3.5, and then go to 4. And it's a slow process of you getting there. Same thing with my guys out there. So again, let me know if you have any questions with this at all, but this topic here is really important. And this is something that, there's a lot of confusion with in the industry, amongst all the different types of practitioners and, coaches and whatever, nutritionists, dietitians, doctors, a lot of confusion here around protein intake. And so hopefully this helps to kind of clear some of this up with how much protein do you need to consume each day. Again, everybody is different, right? Everybody has different needs and wants and considerations. But just make sure that this is something that's on your radar, something that you're paying attention to, because if you're chronically eating in a protein deficit, if you're chronically protein deficient there, the big picture items are, getting sick and, risking death. But for a lot of people, that's not going to be of concern. Really, what you're trying to do is get out of these, more so reference ranges, which prevent sickness and death, and get into something that's more of optimal ranges to where you're thriving versus just surviving, right? Feeling your best, looking your best, performing your best. Okay. And again, protein's not going to make you bulky. It's not going to make you some bodybuilder. It's like, we're not talking about anything like that at all. In fact, bodybuilders, right? They're shooting for body weight or goal body weight times like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Okay. So even if you wanted to eat that much protein, you probably couldn't. Okay. So just remind yourself that going off your body weight or goal body weight and multiplying that by 0.7, right? And trying to hit at least that. Okay. That is not going to make you bulky or make you into some, huge bodybuilder for my ladies out there. Okay. And for also, anybody that's watched these Netflix documentaries, What the Health and all of these different ones out there, protein's also not going to sit here and give you cancer either. Okay. Protein is not bad. In fact, protein is extremely good. In fact, protein, fats, and carbohydrates, none of them are bad. They're all good, right? Protein is what helps us maintain and build muscle, right? Fat is what helps us to, helps us with a lot of different things, but mainly, with our hormone health, with our a lot of things in the cellular level. I don't want to get like super sciencey there, but they do a lot for our health. When we think about, like our, from a sex standpoint, from a libido standpoint, making sure that we're having healthy fats in our diet are extremely important with that. I see this all the time with individuals that have low libido, low sex drive. And they're just on a really, really low fat diet, because that's, again, what we came from, from a generational standpoint. And then carb intake, this is the preferred fuel source there for our brain and for our muscles. So again, very, very important, right? And so everything, when it comes to nutrition, there's a lot of important aspects of it. It's never just one thing. We don't need to eliminate complete food groups. There's a time and a place for all of this stuff, and protein, fats, carbohydrates, they all have very important characteristics and mechanisms there for our body and for our health and longevity, as well as for our aesthetic and performance. So let me know what questions you have. Drop them here below. If you're in the Facebook group or on YouTube, if you're on the podcast, comment below, send me a message, send me a DM, an email. Happy to answer any questions, help however I can. Hopefully I can help kind of clear some of these misnomers out there, this misinformation that's out there. But again, don't get caught up in the calculations or the recommendations. Meet yourself where you are and slowly start working in the right direction. Consistency matters more than anything else. And so, just really take that to heart there, and know that if you can meet yourself where you are, you can slowly start working in the direction that you need to work, and you can be consistent with whatever that number is for you long term. You're going to feel better, you're going to look better, you're going to perform better. So guys, thank you so much. Hope y'all have an amazing night, and we will chat here soon.